if there was ever a lost cause, I was it. And it wasn't until I found, the right people and the right circumstance that believed in me long enough for me to start believing in myself. And I'm telling you right now that the worst of the worst can get better from this if they receive the right support.
Hey guys, that's my friend Christian Countzler talking about his battle with addiction and why he's so passionate about the work he does at Stable Recovery, which is the recovery program in Lexington, Kentucky that they use working with horses to help provide purpose for addicts going through their program. This episode, it's a bit different because this is deeply personal, but it's also something I am deeply passionate about. This is things no one tells you about addiction. So my guests are Christian, who you just heard from, and my aunt and uncle, Sandy and Dave Schimizzi, who lost their son, Alex, who is my cousin, to a drug overdose 2 years ago. So real quick, my uncle is a dentist. My aunt, by trade, was a professional counselor with a specialty in rehab counseling. And the reason that I'm sharing that is because it has become so clear to me that you can have any sort of background, you can have the best resources, and addiction does not discriminate. My cousin was 31 years old. He used to call me cuz. He had battled this disease for several years. First, it was marijuana, then it was heroin, opioids, and I still remember where I was when I got the call. I was on a football field watching my son play flag football, and I took a call from my mom, and she said, Alex overdosed and he's gone. And I think in that moment, it floored me because it was something that we, all of us in our family, which feels a little small, like we all were so worried about this because we knew how hard he battled and all the ups and downs he had had and how he was in and out of rehab. He had held on to jobs and then he lost them. I think we feared that, obviously, but the moment it happened, it was just this flurry of emotion, of sadness to also like what more could have been done. Flash forward to me going to visit Stable Recovery, that recovery program I talked about last year because I was working on a story. We were doing a feature on the program and we were highlighting how they use these horses and the work with horses to create a sort of passion and a purpose to help them move on. Their program is built on accountability, structure, discipline, responsibility. We were given all access and we were able to hear their own personal stories when they spoke up in front of the group. They shared their feelings about, missing time with their families on the outside. And it really made me feel I want those families who have someone that is battling addiction to hear this. I want them to know what goes on here. And I wanted my aunt and my uncle to see that because even though we can't help my cousin, we couldn't save my cousin, I know that a program like this could have. And I know that my aunt and uncle did everything in their power to help him while he was living. Here we are. So the thing no one tells you about addiction is what?
The amount of work that goes into trying to help someone, it's different for every single person that gets affected. And I've been working in addiction recovery for quite some time now. And what I found, especially early on, was that people who were addicted were being treated the same way. And so we were using kind of this blanket coverage to help people get better. And it would work for one or two of those people, right? But what about the other 8 that were in that group or that class or whatever that was, So I think it gets lost in translation that, addiction is a personal problem to each individual. And if you don't treat each individual differently, then we're going to be behind the 8 ball here. And we're just not doing a very good job of helping lots of people. Some people are getting better and lots of people are working in this field and doing good work in this field, but we don't highlight the problem of addiction enough in this country. It competes with lots of other diseases and stuff. It kills people every single day. There's someone overdosing in a hospital right now in Lexington. I guarantee it, and I don't understand why we're not highlighting that problem.
Sandy and Dave, what would you say?
Well, I totally agree with what you're saying. From our experience, when our son needed help, it was almost like a scramble. We really had no clue what was out there, and there were no professionals, no information as to what treatments work best, even in selecting facilities, we didn't even know what to look for. Probably, I'm thinking about coming here and about what didn't we know.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't realize at that time that when our son, who had been suffering with depression and anxiety and was in treatment, that therapists were not permitted to tell us that our son was suffering from a drug addiction because it was illegal for them to provide that information. And it's looking back, how can you parent somebody when professionals know what's going on, but they can't tell you? And I don't know if that would have had made much of a difference early on, but the earlier you catch it, the better outcomes. But we just struggled with finding right treatments, and it just seemed like most of them that our son was involved in were cookie cutter types that sort of like a farm. You go in, you go through all the coursework, and then you're out. And the follow-up was always very poor as far as there were some good halfway houses, some community living, but still the end product, which hopefully would have been a decent job, a place to be, a place to feel better about yourself, never happened.
Right.
You know, they were pretty much told, go out, find a job, and it was usually something very low level, entry level, that really it didn't do too much for self-esteem or ambition, and that's sometimes the beginnings of relapse.
Yeah.
Well, not having experience with addiction growing up, or any relative or friend that I had, it was just an eye opener for me. I thought that, the old just say no thing was going to work. He just should quit. He should just quit. And without having experience in the difficulties of that, it was just a situation where we just felt helpless. Just felt helpless. I still feel helpless to this day.
Very little support, right? And it's not just support for that individual. There needs to be support for the family as well, because eventually that individual is going to get out of treatment and go back to the family. And if we're not also preparing and helping the family to receive that individual, well, we just end up right back at square one. And the thing about addiction is it is a progressive disease. It continues to get worse and worse every single time. So finding a way to stop the progression is something that we should focus on, right? And I think that in hearing you guys talk, you had very little support. You didn't know what to do once it started. You didn't know what to do once he came home. And why were we not educating folks on that?
I pulled out of this farm when we were here this past, I guess, the end of winter. And I remember feeling, this is a game changer. You can feel it when you're here, you hear it, you meet the men at that time that were going through it, and and the reason, in my opinion, it was a game changer was you've got the horses, which are a thing of their own, because that connection is helpful. You cannot deny that, but it also is, Christian, it's you, and it's the way that you have embraced this program and the message that you're delivering. And I remember hearing you talk about your own personal experience, and I think that it would be great to set the table with the experiences. Both Alex, I want to talk about my cousin, but I would love you to share about what you went through and how that became part of this.
Sure. Well, I struggled most of my adult life. I wish I could sit here and tell everybody, well, it was this thing that happened to me at this age that was the catalyst for what turned into my full-blown addiction. I can't do that. I had kind of a troubled childhood. I had an abusive father and stuff like that. I ended up becoming a coal miner, where I was introduced to opiates. And it's kind of the sad Kentucky story of a guy that was trying to support his family. I had a decent job, but I was introduced to opiates pretty quickly in that job. And where I had been able to manage alcohol and manage recreational type drug stuff, once I started opiates, I couldn't manage that anymore. And that the progression I was just talking about, it began then. And This is back during the Oxycontin craze, and all of that it was very easy to go to a doctor and get prescribed opiates, right? And so that was how I fed my addiction for a long time, because I could literally walk into an emergency room and leave with what I needed to feel better. As that progressed, it obviously was getting worse and worse. And at age 35, I started using drugs intravenously. They had finally cracked down on the opiates and taken, the ease of being prescribed that drug away. And so I was left with a choice, and I had to get high at that point. I was so bad off that I had to get high. And so I chose to use needles. And that's when things got really, really bad for me. I lost my family. I lost my job. I lost my house. I ended up homeless for 3 years, in and out of jail, in and out of treatment. But nobody was really helping me on an individual basis, right? And I kept going to these short-term treatment centers and spending a short amount of time in jail, and then inevitably I would be kicked out right into the same environment that I came from. And without a solution to what was going on in my life, I would use again. And then this cycle would start all over, and it wasn't until I removed myself into a long-term recovery program that I was, thank God, was able to surround myself with good people that pushed me to do the right thing, not the wrong thing, which a lot of, I'm sure your son was introduced to a lot of the wrong people in a lot of the situations that he came to. But I took all of that, and that's I didn't know then, but I was researching how to build a recovery program, through my own lived experience. And so after meeting Frank and having worked in the field for a period of time, I was given the opportunity to write the program for stable recovery. And I just, anything that had become a barrier to my recovery, I tried to remove that here at Stable Recovery. And that looks like fellowship and purpose and motivation and all of these things. It's really hard for any human being to get up on a daily basis and grind at a job with whatever that is. Some of us need a little motivation for that. And so that's what I try to do here at Stable Recovery is to make sure that every single morning when these folks are waking up, they know they're important, they know what they're doing is working towards a better life, and then pushing them towards that for a prolonged period of time. And folks seem to be getting better because of it.
And then I still can't believe that Alex is gone, if we're being honest, right? I mean, Alex is so smart. He was just such a loving person. When did you first know that there was something going on with him?
Into high school, I knew that he was smoking marijuana, and I really did not know that he was using anything else until he was out of high school. And at that point, he said to me that he started to use opioids and he needed help.
Wow.
And so we started the cycle. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But he, as a child, he was very bright, but he did have some learning issues. I had him tested, and he was on the spectrum, and so he really had some social difficulties with other kids. And he was in a situation where he had a very, very difficult time at school one day, and he actually suffered post-traumatic stress from that. And at that point, we started to have him treated. This is when he was in 4th grade. Mm-hmm. He started to have being treated for depression at that early of an age. And so he was on some medications and nothing was helping. And he just described that he tried an opioid one time, and he said it made him feel so wonderful. He never felt that good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it beat all the psychotropic medications that the doctors were giving. And that's what started him on that path. And I feel like that's when we lost him.
Well, I was telling you guys, and it was kind of an aha moment when we were speaking earlier. I can remember being 7 or 8 years old and looking in the mirror and not liking what I saw. And I had no reason for that. But
When
there
you were
was
that young?
always something different inside of me. I either felt left out, not a part of, unworthy. And that, I wish I could blame trauma, but I don't remember a time when I was a child where I did not feel different. And I guess I was born with that. And I talked to lots of other people that suffer from addiction, and they'll mention the same thing, that there was just something about being in a room full of people, but feeling absolutely alone as a child. So then we start to grow up and we find these substances that remove that feeling of difference and all of that. And, we obviously gravitate back to that because it's the one thing that's worked. It is the only thing that worked to remove that feeling of being different, And so,
I think he, remember, he wanted to, when he wasn't fitting in, he wanted to dress differently.
Yeah.
He wanted to become Gothic.
Okay.
And in our area where we're from, that was not a good thing in that high school that he was in, because that just made him more
Different.
different and more of an outcast. And so therefore it just starts with something like that, and it just proceeds to more depression, and then
yeah.
reaching out for anything in his case.
It's striking that you would say that because my entire childhood, teenage year stuff, I looked for outside solutions to make the inside of me better, whether it was that pair of shoes or if I could make that sports team or if I could get that girlfriend. I was constantly seeking different ways to make me feel better inside.
He's reaching out to anyone
Exactly. Because
who will accept him.
he had that feeling
He was
inside
not
that,
athletic, and that, in the high school that he attended,
yeah,
that just put him way down on the pecking order to
Yeah.
begin with.
yeah.
And then it just proceeded.
It just compounds.
Yeah.
So
it
that
just goes
feeling is like a feeling of acceptance. Is that what you think it is?
Yeah,
Or-
he never had that.
Or unacceptance
Right.
is the better word.
That's what
for
you're
it.
trying
Yeah,
to get rid of,
Feeling less
or-
than, feeling different, feeling, and then talking about Alex, like a lot of times we'll go to the extreme opposite of the thing, like dressing completely different than what other people are dressing, because maybe that will set me apart from whatever it is,
He used to tell us about that. He would always say, "You would never let me do that," and
Yes,
it's just
like-
another layer of guilt.
It is. It is.
that I have on my shoulders.
No, I'm sure.
For not letting him dress as the way he wanted.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We lived in,
And then we wanted him to be a part of something, so we wanted him to be in the band.
Yeah. Which he was.
because
right?
he was a good musician.
He was a good musician,
he
but
loved
he
music.
felt that being in the band was nerdy. And
Yeah.
and then that was just another thing that knocked him down on
Sure.
the social pecking order.
Sure.
Yeah, so that becomes the why, right? Or some of the background story. And then so once you're in it and once you've experimented with the thing that feels really good and you're there, what was that journey or struggle like for you? Like Dave, what are your thoughts on that part of it?
The struggle that he went through?
Yeah. And how that played out for you guys.
Well,
as
we
a
tried
family.
everything, Lindsay. We tried everything. Starting with sports, which that didn't go well. Then we started with karate. We put him in a karate school. What else? And then we had him in Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts. That didn't go well. It just one thing after another. We tried everything that we possibly could think of to do.
He perpetually had a feeling of, I just feel so lonely.
an
I don't
outcast in
have
everything we did.
a friend. He just never felt like he connected with anyone.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
but I've read, just like you were saying, people don't decide, I'm going to try opiates today. Every person I've ever spoken to and counselors that we've been in touch with Alex's journey all say if it's either physical or psychological, social, emotional, something triggers a need to make me feel better.
Right.
I need to feel better. I just feel so bad about myself.
If you already feel like an outcast, you're going to gravitate towards the outcast, and that's where
Yes.
peer pressure can come in, and where I never ever thought I would do this. Well, all of a sudden, my only group of friends that's
the-
what they're doing.
people
So
in the
so I'm
fringe,
gonna do
yeah.
that, you know. So
That's what kind of we were afraid of, and that's exactly what happened.
exactly, you know, but the circumstances are it can be so different. It can be an ACL tear in a high school football game. It
Yeah.
can be peer pressure from a group of friends. It can be mom and dad's medicine cabinet. And for some reason, you know,
Yeah.
there's so many. But once you've crossed over and began using that substance, then the physical addiction takes over, and that's when things start to get really, really bad. That's where we hurt mom and dad, and we commit crimes, and we do these things that we never, ever thought we would do. I was a good kid. I was. I did not want to ever, I never thought I would be standing in front of a judge dressed in orange, ever. And then after you have broached that, and you're in a jail cell thinking, how in the world did I ever end up here? Feelings of guilt, shame, and remorse, I've got to make those go away. So the second I get out of jail, I'm going right back to that thing that does take it away.
What is it like being the family of someone going through that? That's in that state of it.
What is it like? As
What
a
is it
family?
like being?
Oh, I think we were in a constant state of being distraught. Again, you know, I kept my cell phone with me continuously 24/7 because I was always waiting for the call.
Yeah.
Well, when he lived with us, remember when he lived, we had a two-story home, so his bedroom was upstairs. So every day I would get up, the first thing I would do is go to the stairway and say, Alex,
Yeah.
just to see if it would answer,
Yeah.
just to see if it would answer. That's the way it was. And then after a couple of times where we had to resuscitate him, I said, we just can't do this anymore. We have to get him his own place. We just have to. I can't go through this anymore.
Yeah.
It was, and we did. I mean, we paid for a place for him. I mean, we didn't cut him off. That's one thing we could not do. But it was too much trauma for us on a daily basis.
At that point, what did you know that he was using?
Oh, we knew he was using heroin at that point.
Okay.
We couldn't stop him.
But in his good moments, was it just
when he was,
Alex?
When he was
like-
clean, he was the nicest kid you could ever find.
Yeah.
I mean, he and I could sit down and have a conversation about music. He loved music so much. I mean, and I did too. I did too. So we could talk for hours about
You were
different-
talking about Trivial Pursuit and,
that
you know,
too, yeah.
that stuff,
I mean,
you know.
anything. I mean, he was very knowledgeable
Yeah.
about things. He was well read. That's what he did all day. He would read books.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anything.
Dave said that
when
he
he
would
was-
always make Alex his partner on Trivial Pursuit because that's how you could always
we always
win.
won. We always won. No
You know,
question.
and I guess what we found was, and what happens was, so the opioids were so readily available, but then came heroin because it was cheaper
Yeah.
and shocking.
Yeah.
We never thought our son would do that.
I don't think any mom ever, you know, I don't think your son probably, let me use my own experience with that. I never thought I would ever stick a needle in my arm full of heroin. Ever did I think that, or methamphetamine, whatever it was, you know, that's not anything, and, you know, we were talking about it. There was never a point as a child where I thought, I wonder what that's like. I might try that one of these days. It was not, it was, that is bad, I won't do that, right? That's what that's what I knew.
Right.
But through life, and these feelings of worthlessness and then the shame and the guilt and the remorse and all of that, we're going to do whatever it takes to not feel those feelings, whatever it is. You know, and I go through this with families all the time now because I either have their loved one in the program or they're trying to get their loved one into this program. And you know, you guys, we were talking about support. I wish I could, when a mom calls me or a dad calls me, I could say, well, do A, B, and C, and let's see what, I can't do that. There is no handbook for the stricken, you know, when it comes to that. There's just nothing that I can, you know, we pray that they reach a level, and this sounds awful, but it's true. We pray that they reach a level of pain that will produce the willingness to do the really hard things to get better. How do you do that? You know, I don't know how to tell you all to do that, or, you know, I'm sure you weren't told how to do that, you know.
We were told the opposite.
Exactly, you know.
Get rid of
Meaning
them. Just
you were
get 'em
12.
out.
Yeah,
Get 'em
yeah,
out,
you
kick
told me
'em
that,
out,
and I was shocked by that.
kick him out. Don't let him come back in. Put him on a plane to anywhere. One-way ticket.
Yeah.
What was the thought process behind that for people that were telling you that?
I guess to ease our trauma. I don't know.
Or do you mean they just thought that
Yeah.
he just has to quit, and that that it's just, it's simple, and that if he's still using, just get rid of him? I think that police,
Well-
the police, the attorneys, the law, they considered them lesser people.
That's,
They considered them.
you get written off at a certain point when you've whatever circumstances you get written off in society is basically once you're written off, well, they're a lost cause, just give up on that, right? Basically is what I'm hearing
That
from
is
you all.
what we found.
And I'm here to tell you right now, and Lindsay, you met some of them when you were here the last time, and I was as bad as you could possibly get. I'm living in an abandoned house. I'm not showering for weeks. If there was ever a lost cause, I was it. And it wasn't until I found, the right people and the right circumstance that believed in me long enough for me to start believing in myself. And I'm telling you right now that the worst of the worst can get better from this if they receive the right support, right? That's what needs to be said today is you can and will get better, but we got to find the right resources for the parents, for the individual themselves. They have to have access to the right resources.
And people need to know to look for that.
That's it.
And you said something earlier to me about how you believe it takes a year of time for someone believing in themselves to, is that right? Am I
Well,
saying
yeah.
that right? Like the amount of time that
Minimum,
right,
minimum,
right,
like,
at least. And then to have a purpose, meaning that's why this with the horses is so,
Alex, 31 when he passed, and started using at a very young age. So take 15, 16, 17 years of the progression of this disease. You can't fix that in 30 days.
Right.
You can't fix that in 60 days.
Rehabs were what, 30 days?
You
Usually
can't fix
30-day
that,
rehab.
you can't fix
Yeah, the rehab
years
then.
of damage in
6 of them.
30 days. You just can't do that.
and then when you're done with that rehab program and you've completed it, then what happens?
Well, then you go to a halfway house.
And what happens there?
You meet a lot of people who are
Yeah.
doing the same thing as you're doing.
And that's
And
the
you have
really
it,
important
right.
thing to be said here is these, with the rehab centers and stuff like that, again, a lot of them do a lot of really good work. But if you don't support that individual post-treatment with, wraparound services like continued therapy and a purposeful job and this, that, and the other, if you don't provide that for that individual, they're going back around the same people, places, and things, same environment. They may hold on for dear life for a period of time, for dear life, but eventually they succumb to those feelings again because they're not being supported. And for us, as addicts, when we make a bad choice, some really bad stuff's going to happen. And then it's just that downward spiral all over again. We talk about,
And you're right about the lack of support once you get out. Alex always seemed to be under so much stress after he would get out of treatment, the halfway house. He'd be on his own.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some meetings you can go to, but there's not a big support system. And he was the one who had to find jobs for himself, and usually they were very low level, a lot of jobs where nobody else wanted to work. So employers would be open to hiring people who just came out of rehab, and sort of it was hard to survive in that kind of situation. And it was the unfortunate thing was the last time he was in a treatment program, he was sober for at least 6 months. Wow. He really was trying. And then I noticed he started to get really frustrated, and life is hard. He was feeling, it was so hard to pay the rent.
Yeah.
You couldn't get ahead.
You can't pay the rent.
Felt hopeless.
Yeah. And
Feeling hopeless. And he had said to me, Mom, I can't do this again.
yeah.
I can't keep going through this cycle.
Yeah.
Cycle.
And that's
I
another
can't do it.
very important aspect of the year, because
Yes.
6 months, it's hard enough to get to 6 months, but that's when things get really tough.
Yes.
Because now you've got bills. Now you have responsibility that you obviously couldn't handle beforehand, and no
Right.
one's helping you learn how to, complete these responsibilities and stuff like that. The loss of your license. Do you know how difficult it is to get a job? Well, you can't get a job without a license, but do you know how hard it is for someone that's starting at square zero? Well, you need to get down to the DMV and get your ID, and then you got to take your ID to get your Social Security card. And then you know that can be overwhelming for somebody, absolutely overwhelming. And so if they don't receive support in these very basic things, it's much easier just to make a bad choice and go back to where you are.
If you don't have a car,
Exactly.
how do you get to work?
Yeah.
You know, when I worked as a rehabilitation counselor, it just amazed me how many men and women were kept out of work because they didn't have their driver's license.
Yeah.
And they could not afford to have a car.
Yeah.
And it's like the punishment was so, I thought, much stronger than it needed to be. If you can't get to work, how can you get your self-esteem back? How can you support your family? These people end up divorcing if they're not divorced before.
Yeah.
They can't support their kids. They don't even see their kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a horrible cycle.
Yeah.
And the lack of support on every level is, I think, contributes to continuance, to relapses.
Yeah.
Well, it's a disease,
It is.
It is a disease.
right? And
It is.
so, in terms of progress that's been made, what do you guys think, or what do you think is the most important thing for people to take away in terms of the stigma?
Well, I just think that everybody has to realize that it is a disease. It's not a choice. It is a disease, and there has to be some sort of treatment. There has to be research into the treatment, and to just write these people off is, I mean, we're losing 100,000 people a year, and that's a huge number. I don't think people understand how large a number that is. And you know, where we live in Western Pennsylvania, it's a weekly thing, or it was a daily thing for a while.
Yeah.
Now it's cut back a little bit, but it's still a weekly thing. People in their 20s and 30s are dying.
Yeah.
And then people are like, well, okay, they chose to die, so there it is. I mean, you've got to change the way people view this situation. It has to be given a name, it has to be given a reason, and research has to go into development of some kind of cure, treatment cure.
Yeah.
Not just sitting down and talking to someone.
Right.
There has to be something physical that can be done.
Right. One of the really important things we do here at Stable Recovery is ensuring that, you know, everybody here is motivated towards doing what they need to do to not only get out of the hole that they dug for themselves, okay? They've dug themselves into a hole. It's not about just getting out of the hole, because then you're out of the hole, but you have no car, you don't have a job, you don't have any of that. You've got to overcome that, you know, and so the way I think it should be done is you find something that you want to be successful at, right? Whether it's family, a job, whatever it is, but you have to build a life that's not worth losing over a drink or a drug, you know, and so that's going to take a lot of work. You're going to need a lot of help with that. So surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals that are pushing you on a daily basis to keep up the fight, keep doing what you need to do, keep pushing forward. That's, you know, it's an altruistic thing, and it's absolutely necessary. This is a community problem that needs to be solved by the community, not just individual treatment centers and you know, a few, you know, this needs to be, we need state and federal level help. This crisis, this 100,000 people a year, you heard about it. It was headline news a few years ago. Well, guess what? Better headlines have come along, and the problem never went away, but you don't hear about it as much anymore, but people are still dying every single day.
Uncle Dave, and I just want to ask you this, and I understand if it's too personal, but you're a dentist by trade, and I just mentioned that for context, but you said you resuscitated Alex 3 times?
Well, the first time, we did not have Narcan, so I had to do CPR to keep him alive.
And you could do that because you knew how to do it through your
Until the EMTs arrived, yeah. But they had Narcan. We did not have it. But after that first occurrence, we had Narcan in the house. And we had to do it at least I don't know, at least twice more. At least twice more.
What
With Narcan.
what happened next for you after that first time of bringing him back? And what was that like?
You know, that was a shock to me because I really didn't know that he was a teenager then. He was a teenager. I didn't really know what he was using. I mean, like I said, we were very naive and inexperienced with this situation.
But again, there's no education.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
how
And
would
there
you
were
know?
men that I watched in this program share their stories that were the same exact situation.
Exactly.
He was able to cover it up very well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
which is what they do.
Well, he would have died that night.
Oh, yeah.
But
Dave
he
kept him
fell-
alive.
He fell in his bedroom, and he was against the door of
Wow.
the bedroom. And
You
I
had to
guess
push it open.
he was like, you know, when he was going through what he
Yeah.
was going through, he was actually touching the door with his foot and causing. I'm a very light sleeper.
Yeah.
If I was not a light sleeper, he would have died that night.
Wow.
So I heard this, and I go in, and I couldn't open the door because he was down. He was down right on the floor, right behind the door. So I had to push the door open, and right away, you know, I knew he was in really bad shape, you know, because the breathing is halting. You know, it's a halting breathing. And so I started. We didn't have Narcan, like I said, so I started CPR, and she called 911.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they got there within like 15 minutes. You know, it was about 15 minutes they got there, and they had Narcan, so they brought him. I mean, it's amazing. You hit a person like that with Narcan, they're sitting up and talking to you in 10
They
seconds.
are.
In 10
They
seconds.
are.
10 seconds.
And Narcan is wonderful.
He can be on the floor like you were thinking he's dead. You hit him with Narcan, and in 10 seconds he's talking to you.
Yeah, Narcan's a miracle drug, and without it, many more thousands would die. But here's the problem. Just bringing someone back to life is not enough.
No,
We've got, you know, that's the
absolutely.
thing. Is I think the numbers are starting to skew nationwide. Is yes, overdose rate, death, fatalities are going down because of Narcan. But nobody's getting any better,
Right.
Because these folks aren't receiving the treatment that they need. So all of these politicians are quick to say, we brought the overdose fatality rate down, we're doing such a good job. Narcan has done that, and it has saved lives. It is wonderful. But if you don't get that individual the help they need after they've been brought back to life, guess what? You're just gonna end up having to Narcan them again. That's not a solution to this problem.
You know, every time we had to do that, he went to rehab.
Yeah.
Right after that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like
Good.
we just said, okay, we got
No,
him back.
sure.
We got him back. Now, you know, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
I mean, we put him in rehab every time.
But did he receive the care he needed in rehab?
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
And that's we were talking about hitting rock bottom. And Christian, when you talk to the men, I've seen you give your talk, and you asked them in this room. It was like 70 in this room, and you said, "Raise your hand if you want to share what your rock bottom is." And that was a moment that was just so eye-opening to me, hearing each of their personal accounts. The rock bottom. What is the answer there? Because you guys brought up a good point. You weren't ready to let Alex hit rock bottom. And I don't know as a parent how you make the decision that you're going to do that, but nor do I think that that's what should happen. What is the solution?
Well, I don't want to say that we didn't want him to hit rock bottom. We didn't want to keep him out of our lives. Okay. So
It's a big difference.
we decided that we would stay close, our relationship.
Yeah.
We wanted to keep a relationship. And I was telling you in our local newspaper some years back, there was an article of a woman said that the counselor said, no matter what, if he tries to get back in your house, don't let him in. Don't let him in. But he was an addict, and they told her that she was they had a codependent relationship, and that she was not helping him. So she said the last thing she remembered and remembers of her son is her son banging on her door, "Mom, please let me in," just screaming, "Let me in." And that was the last time they heard of him. He died of an overdose that evening. And we decided that
Well,
we don't want to do that.
We didn't want him homeless. We didn't want him sleeping on the streets, under a bridge somewhere. I don't know.
We didn't
We just
feel
decided that that's not what we wanted to do with our only child.
Yeah.
that was right. He's our only child. And we just kept thinking,
Even if he's
Rehab's
not,
gonna-
though, to be honest, even if he's not,
Yeah.
your
Well,
feelings
yeah,
might
even
have been
if he's
exactly
not.
the same,
Yeah,
right?
I don't think either of us would ever turn anybody away.
Right.
And in our heart, we want to help. Of course, when he was in the States like that, we always made sure we say, you're going to rehab, which he did.
No, we had other people say to us, though, you're
Oh,
lucky.
yeah.
You're lucky he doesn't have brothers and sisters because he would poison them. And so if you have an addict who's a teenager or something and he has younger siblings,
Maybe
a lot of people recommend you get him out. Get
Maybe
him out
you
of the
do.
house.
If-
Get him out because he'll influence the other ones and you'll have more than that on your hands.
So, yeah, okay.
So I don't know. Everybody has their own opinion about this stuff, and it's just
the other thing,
there's no book on it.
No, there's not.
there is in the statistics, even then, I could not find, because this whole time I just kept reading everything I could, trying to study everything I could. And yeah, there are people who say you gotta kick them out, let them hit rock bottom in that way.
Yeah.
And I've never seen any evidence in terms of numbers or research that really helps. I've
No,
not
you
seen
probably
that.
won't. And that's the other thing is there aren't enough statistics, for a mom that's feverishly researching what to do if this is going on.
We're thinking rock bottom is death.
Well,
So, I mean, that's not a solution. It wasn't a solution for us.
Although I have to say, when I read what he's written in his journals, I think he did hit rock bottom
Sure.
many times.
He apologized to me over and over and over again.
When he was
Every
in,
time he came out of rehab, he's apologized.
Yeah,
time.
remorse, guilt, shame, and remorse. Same thing every time.
but he just his journals from when he was in treatment, it certainly sounded like somebody who had hit rock bottom.
Absolutely.
But
And
then he came
I hit
out.
rock bottom 50 times.
Yeah,
And then would find a new bottom for my rock bottom.
Yeah, that's just it.
I don't think there is a concrete, well, that must be bottom, So, I mean, yeah, and you said it. Eventually, that rock bottom is going to be death. And that's ultimately where every one of us go untreated.
And you guys had talked about, as you said, he had different jobs. And I remember Alex working at a restaurant that he seemed to really enjoy when I talked to him. But then even that, it's like, what happens then? At some point, he's exposed to
Stressors.
what makes him,
people in the community,
yeah. And he's able to get it again.
people, places, and things that
Yeah.
start a
Somebody wants
fire.
to, on a Friday night, somebody wants to party.
Yeah.
That's all it
and,
takes.
And especially
That's all it takes.
Right.
on a restaurant scene, and I used alcohol to quit drugs and drugs to quit alcohol. I went through those phases where
Really?
well, the drugs are the problem, so I'm just going to drink. And then the alcohol would become a problem. Well, I'm just going to,
For those people, having a beer is not partying.
no. We don't know how to have a drink. It's just,
You talked about yourself having the needle in your arm and just realizing that maybe that would be better if the outcome was to
death.
not be here anymore.
Absolutely. No, my goal near the end of my addiction was to just not wake up. I just did not want to wake up and hurt my family. I didn't want to wake up and burden society. I didn't want to wake up and, go through the grueling aspects of finding the money to get what I needed, finding the dope dealer to spend the money at, and then finding a place to go do the dope. It was just, it is really hard work to stay high. Once you've lost money and mom and dad aren't supporting the habit anymore and all of that kind of stuff, it becomes work. And I was tired. I was really, really, really tired. I'm sure Alex got to that point many times. And so, yeah, death seems, I can remember going to jail and being relieved that that was at least going to break the cycle for a period of time. I knew where I was going to sleep. I knew that I was going to eat, and I was not going to have access to drugs, and so that, but there were many, many nights that I laid down and I thought, man, please let this be the last time that I.
Well, the legal system is another problem because I remember his judge saying to him that one time, if you do this again, you're going to jail for a year. You're going to
11 months.
11 months. He said, if you do this again, if you're in front of me again, you're going to jail for 11 months next time. And so I truly believe that that was the last little piece that
Yeah.
caused him to kill himself.
Check
and
out.
I swear, I know the last time was suicide. I
Check
know it
out.
was.
Yeah.
Because he chose to do it
No, when you were
when no one
describing
was
it.
around. No one was around. No one was there to save him.
Yeah.
I wasn't there to save him.
And he didn't do the test strips.
He didn't do the
Yeah.
test strip for the fentanyl.
Yeah.
He had those. And
Yeah.
and I remember the judge saying, next time you come before me, it's 11 months in jail. And he told me when he after that, he said, I'm not going back to jail.
Yeah.
I'm not going back to
Yep.
jail.
And
There's no way.
and
So it was just another
For sure.
another
you
strike.
know, yeah.
I said to Dave when the judge said that and wrote that down in his recommendations, said, well, the judge just put a death sentence on our son
He did.
because it is so easy to relapse
Absolutely.
and to threaten that.
Which serves no purpose.
For a mental illness.
Serves no
Right,
purpose.
for a
Going
mental
to jail
illness.
serves no
None.
purpose at all.
And
None. No.
granted, I mean, it is a medical problem. It's a severe medical
There you go.
problem. And I don't want to take this lightly, but you're not going to put a diabetic in the hospital because they decided to eat, or jail, or because they ate candy, or they're not
That's a
following their
great-
diet.
That's a great way to put it.
You're not going to put somebody who's morbidly obese because they're not following their diet and they have a really bad heart problem.
Right.
You know, there are so many. It is a really blind system.
No.
For all the advancements in medicine,
Yeah.
why can't there be an advancement that is something that can be helpful for? I think it was interesting, Christian, when you were talking about even the way you felt like a need for acceptance. It seems that the trigger for some of this stuff is similar, right? So just there's so much, I think, to explore.
Well, while Alex was going through this, and even now, I try to keep up on the research that's being done because there is research being done by the NIH. And I was feeling really optimistic. There are some good programs, good research. There's one where they were testing it all on rats and ready to start on humans. A vaccine that would help. Just recently with alcoholism, and I know I'm going to say the wrong word, but they have identified the synapse where the brain wants to seek the pleasure of alcohol. And once you are able to identify the parts of the brain where addiction is centered and where the synapses happen, then you can maybe come up with some really good ideas. I did put Alex on a list. WVU had advertised they were starting to do inserting electrodes into the part of the brain that governs addiction. And they were looking for human beings to be part of it. And I put him on the list. And I used my email address, and he still hasn't been called, which means to me that there's other people out there that I'm sure are on that list that are hoping.
They are making progress with that. There's actually, and I don't know it well, but it's something that they can place,
Yes.
and it helps with the withdrawal symptoms of it, and then hopefully it will help sustain curb the cravings that go along with that kind of stuff, So I think they're making some progress with that.
I would like to see the NIH really talk about these to the public, to take away the stigma that it's not a just say no decision,
Right.
that it is a medical issue, and that there are vaccines that are hopefully will be available in the near future, and that there are treatments, medical treatments, to treat this medical problem.
Well, they always went with the methadone.
Yeah.
They're thinking, well, methadone is going to do this. Instead of using heroin,
Yeah.
you can just give them a little bit of methadone every day and that'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could attest to that. I don't know if you ever
I've
went through the
seen-
methadone clinic.
No, well, I didn't go to the methadone clinic, but I've got guys that are literally in the program because of the methadone.
Yeah.
Like it.
They get addicted to the methadone.
It doesn't. That doesn't fix
We
the
drove-
problem. That
we
is a
drove-
crutch.
We drove him 20 miles every day.
Yeah, to get his dose.
to the methadone
yeah.
clinic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it takes more than that, and that's where we've got the horses out here that we're utilizing to help support our program. And there's something in talking about the brain and how the disease centers there and stuff like that, but something about being around these horses, it's some sort of reaction in the brain or something like
dopamine
that.
is-
But exactly, it's helping human beings release the right chemicals or whatever that is, which gives us time to work on the other things so that these folks have a chance to get better, right?
That is true.
And so I hope, stable recovery's only been around 3 years, but I'm hoping that through some research, you're going to find that, I don't know if it's the prefrontal cortex, but something about maybe it's not just horses, maybe it's animals, maybe, something, maybe it's the purpose of a decent job, but something that helps rebuild these synapses or whatever it is. I'm not educated in that area, but there are signs, especially in our program right now, that there are ways to fix this, and help someone receive the care and support that they need so that they can sustain that. I tell my guys and girls this all the time. The very thing that tells your heart to beat and your lungs to breathe is also telling you that it's okay to stick a needle in your arm. It's your brain, the very same thing. Like the disease of addiction will literally whisper to you late at night when you're feeling real lonely and nobody's, that type of stuff. That's when these thoughts will occur that, man, I should probably just give up and go do this or go do that. And that's the super scary part of it. So again, the altruism of being surrounded by other folks that are motivated towards doing the right thing.
Yeah.
When that thought occurs, you can wake somebody up and say, hey, dude, I just thought about using again. Help me through this or whatever that is, But a lot of these places where you end up, these halfway houses and sober livings and stuff like that, one bad egg, one individual coming into that environment that is not motivated towards change, that is not really there to get better, be around that individual for any amount of time at all, and all the progress that you've made through treatment and therapy and whatever that is, sitting on the couch with a guy talking about, hey, I'm going to go get high tonight, you'll lose every bit of that, And so the responsibility for me, for all the men and women in stable recovery, is to make sure that they have a safe, healthy environment to do the really hard work that they need to do so that they have a chance at sustaining recovery.
So Alex, I described a little bit about him, but I told them like he would always call me cuz, so our relationship was when we would see each other, which was more than on just holidays, but he was always so caring about like the individual stories that you brought. Like he was just so kind and interested in anyone. It wasn't just, not just relatives, not friends. But my aunt, you found some of his writings.
Yeah.
And so did he just always journal? Because I wanna share one.
He did throughout his life. He would do some
Yeah.
journaling, but I found those.
So he's, like I said, just so smart. But so I wanted to read this one because, there are so many to choose from, but it's called Group Home. And I think that it really is, I would just love to hear your thoughts, Christian, too, and to get what you guys think. It's so strange to read these now, right? But he wrote, Group Home, living at the group home, nowhere to go, over underachieving with nothing to show. Feed the animals in the cafe, institutionalize the strays. If you don't do what we say, it's back to jail, enjoy your stay. Condescension at its finest, we are human beings. Dignity in short supply, lack of human kindness. Most of us will die like dogs laying in the streets. Statistically, we're human walking corpses. Redemption out of reach. What did you just find these? Did you know that he wrote this before?
I had just read that one. I knew that he had a number of things, but it took a while for me to be able to read his things.
Right.
So,
I know. And I've never done this for, to go out publicly either, but I just, based on what we're talking about the homes, this is his account of what he was feeling being in a home, being in rehab, being in a halfway house, wherever he wrote this. And it's exactly the opposite of what this program is preaching and is doing. This is the scenario that so many people fall into. And I just think for one person to hear this who is a family member of someone who has someone going through this, you know?
Right.
Shame on us for ever allowing a human being that is supposed to be in a positive environment getting help, for allowing a human being to feel that way. To feel that.
And that's what
Right.
he would say when he was in treatment. He really had a hard time, and in the group homes, he really had a hard time feeling good about himself.
Yeah.
Because there were rules that were made for, I'm sure, to keep it running smoothly,
Right.
but did not focus on individual needs. But
Yeah, and I mean, there is so much more. I mean, I don't say that to put this out there and to just have it be like, oh, look at what he's saying about his horrible experience. But I think that there's so much value in understanding what's going through someone's mind.
no, and the depth of his despair.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
That's it.
Right.
Like, he is desperate at that point in my head. And, but when I hear that, that's a guy that's in a place that is still absolutely desperate for help. And you're supposed to be in a place that's being helpful. And obviously that's not going on in that situation.
And meanwhile, maybe a few months before or after, he's at my grandma's house asking questions.
Yeah.
Right? Like the juxtaposition of understanding that is like really jarring.
But that's the hard part of parenting someone who has this disease, because it's what do you do? What could we have done? What could I have done with Alex in front of me? I'd say, what do you need? How can I help you? What do you need to?
We said that. all the
That's what
time.
I said.
Yeah.
We would say to him, what do we need
I told
to
him
do?
every time, if you're feeling like you want to use, call me. Just call me before you use.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so Christian, for, you guys have the good problem of having so many people now, especially since people know what's going on here, of wanting to be here. For people that don't have access for whatever reason to stable recovery or places like this, what can they do? What should they do?
Well, they've got to find someone, and whether that's a sponsor or mentor or someone, around that can help them. And I wish we could take everybody at stable recovery, but we have got to get better in the treatment realm, in the recovery realm, at producing places that pay close attention to every individual. If you're going to take on the care of these very sick people, you had better doggone. If I'm telling you that, yes, send your son to me, we're going to take care of him, that is my responsibility to take care of him. Everything around that, And then we'll get into the argument of, well, he's an adult and well, this, that, and the other. Studies have shown that we stop maturing at the age that we start using. So he's really not an adult maturity-wise, right? And you'll see that in just about every recovery home around, I myself was probably a 14-year-old boy whenever, and I was 40 years old when I finally started to get treatment, but probably, as far as maturity goes, I had not matured enough. But it's attention to the individual, right? Every single human being deserves the attention they need to get better, right? And you can't just throw this blanket coverage out there and hope that it works for a few, because that's what's going on. And it will work for a few. But what about those Alexes that it doesn't? And here we are sitting with two very distraught parents that did everything in their power to save their son, but had nobody help them save their son. That's wrong on every level, right? It takes.
So seriously, if someone's in that position right now, is it a phone call somewhere? Is it where do you even?
Yeah, the unfortunate fact of the matter right now, the current state of treatment in our country is it has been recognized that you can make money off of these individuals. And so I wish I could give you a long list of numbers of good places that want to support individuals and help get them better. But the unfortunate fact of the matter is there are some, but there's not a lot, you know. And so I don't have a good answer for that, Lindsay. I wish I could. You know, that's the sad fact. That's why we're sitting here right now, is there aren't enough good options for a mom, a dad, an individual, male, female, what it doesn't matter, to say, hey, do this, and this is what's going to happen with that, you know. So
I don't think there's been anything proven out there that actually works for everybody. That's the
for
thing.
everybody,
Yeah.
no,
Right.
you're exactly right about that.
And so therefore, you know, you can send somebody to a place where you're paying $15,000 a month
That's right.
for them to be in a rehab.
That's right.
And they'll come out and they'll use again.
Yeah, I
mean,
get a lot
you
of
know,
those guys here, you know, and that's
I mean,
where
there's some very expensive places out there.
very expensive
You
places.
know, that's the Hollywood actors.
Yeah.
Who have
No, for
children.
sure.
Who have children that have gone through this.
Right. Yeah. No, we've got to do better as a nation. In you know, we were talking about prevention and education. You know, and we were talking a little bit about the DARE program and Just Say No. And you know, that's the best that we have as far as education and prevention right now. That's not good enough. It's not. Like, we've got to come up with better ways to help support the family first, because that's where this starts. You know, I mean. Mom, dad, they need the knowledge. You guys have said it several times. You didn't know what to do. Well, we got to do better about letting them know what to do, right? You know, so we're way behind the 8 ball when it comes to addiction in this country. It's why it's one of our biggest problems. You know, we're not doing enough about it. Times, especially if you're poverty stricken or don't have an education or something like that, it is a really hard time to live right now. And so, you know, we're post-COVID now, and we're just now feeling the effects that it had on people in addiction and alcoholism and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that never would have become addicted until COVID came around. And so now we have this explosion of individuals that never intended on ever being an alcoholic or drug addict, but they were locked inside their home, isolated for long periods of time with zero support, that are now starting to struggle with these substances, you know. So we have a lot of work to do.
My mom, Alex's aunt, shared that she had sent them a letter, or Alex had sent my parents a letter, and he referenced that the things that he was working on, and that he was, you know, trying both, like, physically trying to get more fit, but then other things that he was doing to just try to heal. And it felt like he was, you know, he didn't lose the sense of wanting people to be proud of him, you know. And I know you guys are so proud of him. What would you say through the whole journey makes you the most proud of Alex?
Just he tried really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I you know, I don't know what else to say except that it was a struggle, and he admitted such, and he apologized profusely many times, but couldn't overcome.
Yeah.
And
But
that's a sad thing.
he fought and he lost.
And that's
Which is the
where, you know,
sadness.
no amount of willpower, and we discuss that a lot. No amount of willpower can pull you out of this. Like, it takes more. It takes the support that we've talked about. It takes the education that we've talked about. It takes society removing the stigma and being willing to give these folks a chance, right? Like, they don't need to go work at a fast food restaurant or at a car wash or something like that and be asked to feel better about yourself. Well, now you're 35 years old making minimum wage. That's not going to help anybody, right? We've got to find ways to help support these folks. And again, it's a community problem, and unless the community is willing to help, it's not going to get any better. You know, we're always going to have these barriers.
Yeah, it takes people coming together
That's it.
and continuing to talk about it.
That's it,
and
removing
talk
the
about it,
stigma.
like, you know, like you guys have talked about it.
Yeah.
Uncle Dave, you talk about like, and I know I keep saying Uncle Dave, sorry, I just call you Dave, I feel like I'm 10. Dave, you mentioned just feeling hopeless and that you feel such a level of guilt. And I assume that this is something that just goes along with it, you know? But I hope that you find peace in just knowing how much you did.
Yeah, I try to hold on to that. But, you know, it's hard to think that I wasn't able to save him. No matter what I did, I wasn't able.
Well, I'd like to say, and I don't know if it'll help at all, but no amount of love would have saved me, and I mean that with everything inside of me. My mom, who was my rock, my superstar, she did everything in her power. She was actually dying of cancer, and she was still worried about me, and even going, seeing and going through that, I wanted so badly for her to stop worrying and being scared, and I could not do it. I just couldn't do it. I tried everything I could. So I'm certain that Alex was the same way. Like, it wasn't ever intentional to harm, hurt, or, it's just one of those things that once he got in, he just couldn't get out. And that's, there are lots of other people suffering just like that right now. Just like that. Yeah. My kids, the love of my kids, I can remember Christmas time, and I had just gotten them all bikes for Christmas, and I was on my way to take their bikes back because I needed money for dope. And, that feeling of, oh, what am I about to do? How in the world did you ever become such a heinous person that you're literally going to take your kids' Christmas presents back because you're out of money? That is not who I am. It is not who I am. That's who I had become because of the drugs, right?
Well, Alex always said he would never have children. He said, I'm not going to bring a child into
Yeah.
this situation.
Yeah.
I'll give him credit for that. I don't know.
There were many, many times that I, had that very,
I mean, he was in a relationship with a woman, and just there was no way he wanted
yeah,
to continue that.
yeah.
And he found happiness.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think he did with her
That's
for a
definitely.
while anyway.
I think,
He was married once too.
yeah, but I think that the people that were in his life, he loved.
Yeah.
His girlfriend and us. I know he loved us, but the disease was bigger.
It is.
It was bigger. And like I said, I have no doubt that he fought. And I know he fought so hardly that's why in one of my last conversations with him was when he said, I can't do this again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can give you an example. You're a mom who lost a child, but I know addicted moms that lose their, even the love you feel for Alex, that connection between a mother and her child, this disease will rip that apart. That's how strong it is. Like, it can literally break a maternal instinct that is literally in our DNA. That's the power of addiction. It can literally disconnect that. So, I mean, I hope that puts it into perspective that it literally, hundreds of thousands of years of humanity and that maternal instinct, which is literally encoded into your DNA, addiction can overcome that. It's unreal. It's the most powerful force out there.
What have you observed with the horses and with the men that are starting this program? If there's a switch that sort of goes off,
Yeah, and I don't have the words for it, but you've met Josh Franks, and he's the example I use just because it was in the very beginning of stable recovery, and it was one of the more profound changes that I saw and how quickly that was. I saw a guy come in here who was absolutely broken in every way, broken that I know you two have seen before. And within days of being in a barn, he was smiling and he was laughing and he was interacting with his peers. And he started to feel better about himself. Like, wow, I have a chance to be something, And there's something about horses that put broken people back together. And, we need to find out what that is. We need to replicate it, and we need to get it out there to the people that need it so that, we can help more people.
Sandy, is there anything you would say to people that might be in a similar situation?
That's a really good question because we went through many, many years of frustration. I guess I still believe in the stay close. And I still believe that, while somebody is struggling as hard as they are with their self-esteem and guilt and all those other things, that they need to know that there are people who still love them. I just feel very strongly that they know that that someone does care about you. And I never wanted that to leave Alex. And I think that, as Dave and I were saying, I really think that at the end, when he did relapse, and as he said, he can't do this again, and he knew that there was this sentence of 11 months ahead of him, I think he quit. I don't think he felt like he could
Yeah.
go on.
Yeah,
And
he
I
was
think
tired.
that he was tired.
He gave up. And look, I can completely relate to that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do that.
Death, the thought of death was the only thing that brought me peace. And that's a staggering statement. But the thought of not having to wake up was the only thing that would bring me any peace.
Yeah.
You know?
I sort of wonder what makes a judge, what makes the not the district attorney, but the attorneys that represent not my son, but on the other side, what makes them come up with these punishments?
Ignorance. That's the only word you can put on
Not
something
taking
like
the
that.
time to
There's just,
understand.
there you go, just not putting in the time, and we're guilty of that. How many hundreds of thousands of people died before we realized OxyContin was killing them?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like people were literally dying every single day, and it took years after that before we ever did anything about it. And now we're still suffering, the repercussions of what that did. Heroin had almost gone away in America. It was almost gone. Like, we had done a really good job of moving away from heroin until OxyContin came on the scene, and then heroin came back, and overdose, and now fentanyl. And it's just like, how are we letting this get worse and not making it any better? Like, that's insane to me.
My husband had a really good point whenever they settled the opioid case. So the money goes to the police and the judicial system, to that part of it. And it's like, well, what about these people who are suffering that cannot afford to get a car to go to work? I mean, maybe some money should be trickling in to help the addicts live in a place other than on the street.
I don't think we have a halfway house in our entire county.
I think we
Wow.
do now.
We do now?
We do now.
We didn't for a long
Yeah,
time.
not for a long time. Nobody
Because,
wanted them.
nobody wants it in
Kentucky
their
has
neighborhood.
actually done a good job with the opioid money. They set up Kentucky has done a good job with the opioid. They gave that to facilities like Stable Recovery, and the treatment places actually got the money. Not all of it, a lot of, so.
So they did that also, but I'm talking about the people who are suffering.
Yeah,
Like
no.
like to help them after they're done with
There you
treatment.
go, yeah.
You go. I remember the last time. Well, not the last. The last time he was in treatment, and he wanted to come back to Greensburg, and he didn't have an apartment. And Mom, would you help me?
Yeah.
They told me I could at the halfway house, that I can use their phone like for an hour every day and try to call apartments, but that doesn't give you much time.
Well, think about what you just said. So we're asking somebody to completely rebuild their life, and you get to use a phone an hour a day.
Yeah.
That's the resource he was given. Here's a phone for an hour a day.
Yeah.
Rebuild your life with that.
Call the right people.
Yeah.
Call right, and to
insane.
find one is
To
hard.
even limit the amount of time that somebody can try to rebuild their
He's
life.
not even in the county where we live.
Wow.
He's in a different county.
Wow.
Are there small, like possibly meaningful things that you think could be done for families that suspect someone is using, or that think that they could have something like this happening?
There are really good places out there, and it's not just Stable Recovery. So unfortunately, you did a ton of research, and I hate to use this word when we're talking about life or death, but you're almost lucky if you happen to come across the right one. And it shouldn't be that way, like it shouldn't be luck of the draw, But I literally get off the phone with moms all the time and they say, oh my God, I'm so lucky, they just happened to call the right number where they heard the right things and stuff like that. That's wrong in and of itself. It should not be luck on whether you get to support your son or help your son,
Yeah, in our county, they give a list of facilities, and you would hope that you chose a good one.
They have to have a bed too.
They have to.
Yeah,
have
that's
that.
the
A
other
lot
thing.
of times
Yeah.
there's no openings.
Yeah, no, that's a problem that every treatment provider faces is, the problem. And that's, again, why aren't we talking more about the problem? We can't even get these folks in to help them. We're so inundated.
Right.
So, there's where a lot of the money could have gone is let's just start some new facilities and get some more beds, but we're not even doing that.
We have a good program in our county called Sage's Army, I was telling you
tell me.
about. And that probably is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Started by an amazing man who lost a son.
There are
to
good places out
an
there.
overdose. And, they would be able to provide you with ideas on places to go, treatment, what to, maybe the initial steps.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm not really sure. And I have to just say, I've been out of the entry or the beginning steps for so long that I really haven't kept up in my area, our area, what's available for that age group.
Alex's funeral provided one of their biggest donations of all time.
To this, we recommended that people donate to Sage's Army because they were such a good program.
And it was a huge donation, and they couldn't thank us enough for the donation. Oh God, they were very appreciative.
How would you?
Remember, there were 300 people at his funeral.
Yeah.
There were, and that struck me so much because there were people that were all ages, people that you knew really cared about Alex, that had great stories about parts of his life I never knew about, but like people that were in the band with him when he was in the high school, his band that he made. And I think that was my first inkling. That was before I had been here of I know who he is as a person, but you also, you hear of the struggle, you see the struggle, and it's just.
He touched a lot of people.
He touched a ton of people. And it also made me think this could happen to anybody. It really could happen to anybody, is what we keep saying. And it doesn't discriminate, as we've seen, as we've talked about. But the people that were coming up saying, I worked with Alex at this restaurant. I worked with him at this restaurant. And he just, because of how he was. How would you describe what Alex was like?
He was a caring individual. He wanted to know how your life was going, even though his life was not going well.
Yeah.
He was more worried about how yours was going. He talked to people all the time. He was a caring individual. I don't know how else to say it.
I think one of the best illustrations is if we went out to eat, if he saw an elderly person walking into a restaurant, he'd go up and hold the door for them.
Wow.
And people would say, what a nice son you have.
Yeah.
And we got that a lot. He reached out to other people and he liked helping other people. I think those are his best qualities.
Wow.
You guys are doing a lot of good sharing your story.
That's a fact. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. It will help.
Thank you. I hope that,
Hope somebody.
yes,
That's it.
hope that
Hopefully.
It will. It will.
Yeah.
It
It's
will.
not easy sitting here.
No.
I'll tell you that.
No, I know it's not. And I tell our folks here all the time. And we talked about it, I think, previously. One bad day and everything that everyone has worked so hard for.
Yeah.
And that's the most, for me, being on this side of things, when we lose a guy, maybe not the death, but the amount of work and to see how good they were doing, feeling about themselves and their family and all of that. And then all of a sudden the wrong set of circumstances causes them to make one bad choice. And here we are right back at square one. And now we've got to go back and redo every bit of the work that we just went through. It's, you talk about disheartening. You guys have been through it. It's a tough deal. It's a tough deal. Super tough.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say? You? I'm not shaking your hand.
I thought
No, thank you. No,
closing.
no, you good? Is there anything else that you?
I don't think so.
Great.
Except I do want to say, and I hope I can say this without really crying, but for the 31 years that we had him, he was a wonderful person. And I would go through the same thing again.
Wow.
That's true.
Almost made it.
I almost made it.
Wow.
Almost.
I can't believe you did as well as you did. Both of you, to be honest.
But that's important. I love that you just said
It
that.
is.
That's really important.
It's super important.
But I think
These
maybe
are
that's
good people.
a message for other people that it might feel like hell, but it's still your child.
Yep.
And there's still wonderful things about your child.
They're good.
The addiction is a bad thing, but there's so many wonderful things about them, and I am grateful that we had him in
to
our
shed a
life.
light on the kind of parents that we're sitting next to. They're both absolutely amazing. And Sandy, literally on her own, went into a pool in the Marriott at Saratoga with my son, and was jumping off the side of the pool. And this was recent. And just
Well.
they had their own amazing play date, and it is the
Yeah.
one thing my son talks about. So I think for people that are listening to this that are just would never expect anything like your circumstances, it really can happen to anyone.
Yep.
And I think the parents that you have been, that you are, it is exactly what Alex needed.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
it really is.
Thank you.
Yep.
And the time that you gave him to come back to that warm environment every time he did, and see the love that you gave him, that's enough. It really is.
I want to thank everyone at Stable Recovery for opening their doors, and to Christian for being so just honest in his story and sharing that. And certainly my aunt and uncle for being willing to go and open up and just be so vulnerable in their story about losing Alex and what they went through. If you are inspired to take action, we are including links that are helpful, including Stable Recovery in the show notes. One thing I did want to mention is, we have been told that from now during this holiday season, we know the holidays they're hard for a lot of people, but especially for addicts that are going through a recovery program. This time of year, starting from now, where we are until well into January, is known. It is the hardest time for them. Certainly they're missing families. It is when people can oftentimes feel the loneliness. So if you are feeling that you want to support, please consider it. I also wanted to share that my aunt and uncle have this unique connection to Lexington, which I didn't realize until we went to Stable Recovery, because my cousin is adopted, and they got him from a family that was in Louisville. And they said when they went on the trip to go to Louisville that they actually stopped by Lexington first to take a look around. And I thought it was ironic that was the first time they'd been back. Again, for families that are going through this, we see you. And I certainly learned so much from this conversation and what my aunt and my uncle had personally dealt with, as well as Christian. And thank you so much for being here. I want to continue this conversation. Stable Recovery, as a note, has graduated 32 now. Their School of Horsemanship has seen 140 come through. Let me know what is on your mind about this topic. As always, thank you for watching and listening, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you back here next week. Please don't forget, follow and subscribe to Things No One Tells You. And of course, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave a 5-star review, because that's really what helps people get more listeners. We would love to grow this community. We are so grateful that you're a part of it. See you next time.